everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Carolyn Talks. This is the podcast / YouTube channel where I, your host, Carolyn Hayes, film critic and journalist, speak to film creatives around the world about their work, the industry, and what inspires them. And today, this is one of my interviews for the 2023 New York Asian Film Festival. And today, I'm joined by writer and director Eldar Shibanov to talk about his film Mountain Onion. Hi, Eldar. This film is about this journey between two siblings, a young boy and a girl, who basically go, I think, on a journey to find their family in a metaphorical sense, but also this has a very nuanced discussion about masculinity and gender and how people perceive relationships between men and women and what makes a man a man. So we'll definitely get into that. But first of all, thank you, Eldar, for joining me today to talk about your film. Yay!
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah. So before we begin talking about the film, I always ask my guests to say a bit about themselves and what got them into the film industry. So for you, Eldar, talk first about becoming a filmmaker in Kazakhstan and like what led you to this path that you're on now.
I think I graduated from architecture academy, but during that I started to work in film industry as a assistant of production designer. So that helps me to get into the cinema. And then in the same time, my mother, she worked in industry, and I helped her. And then my brother, he went to the film school to become a DOP. So that's when in 2010, we start to make our short films together, but we don't know much about the story plots and all those things. And then I start to develop that part. So I think, and I went through a lot of some workshop programs, some labs, and now, and since that, it's 12 years later, I start to make I made my first feature film. So it was a long
right. So film is basically a family industry. It's you, your mom, and your brother. So that's pretty interesting. And you all work in different parts of the industry. Can I ask what it is your mom does in the industry?
She started to work also as a production designer, but then she became more like a producer and writer.
Oh, okay, cool. Does she perhaps work with you on your film? Was she perhaps work as a producer on Mountain Onion?
Yes, she'd been a producer and my co-writer during the Biennale Cinema College program, which gave us a grant for the film. So
I think that's actually pretty cool for many reasons, but more, I think, because she worked with you on this film in particular. And I'm going to ask you about this because, as I mentioned at the beginning, the film Mountain Onion is about this 11-year-old boy, Jabai, and his sister, Sania, who their family is in a kind of an unstable state. Like there's the dad who is trying to build this house for his family. He's made a promise to his wife that he is going to build this house, but he feels emasculated because the wife doesn't really believe in his promises anymore. And she makes these very sly comments about him not being a man and that, and he also ends up making a lot of statements about what makes a man, like the whole no crying, men don't cry, all of that. And so I love to know what, first of all, working as a son with your mother on a project like this, because it does talk about the parent-child relationships and the mother-child and mother-son relationships. So first talk to me about that, because I think that's such an interesting, input to have on a film like this, because she's a producer, but also co-writer, and she's your mom, and she's guided you through all of these years as a filmmaker. And like, she's the reason you're making films now. So talk about working with your mom on this project first.
I think that's tough. And but even that film is more like it's more light, it's more bright story, because my previous short film, which was most successful, it's Sex, Fear, and Hamburgers, which has been selected for the Venice Film Festival in 2018. And when I gave her that script, it was when it was in text, she said, "Well, why do you give me that such a text?" Because during the text, it looks like some kind of porn. But when it became a film, it's more like artistic thing, which focused on the story, which on inner world of the characters. But here on Mountain, it was quite interesting to develop that story with the mom, because she gave me some perspective from the parents' side. It was easy for me to understand their, I don't know, motivations, their goals, especially as for the mom character, for the Lasta. And I don't know, we pushed each other, and she was some kind of that engine who gave us power to move forward.
Yeah, because I think for a film like this, because it's mainly male centered, so there's only like two main female characters, which is the mom Lasta and the daughter Sania. So I think it's important to get that female perspective of masculinity as well as parenting, and also of children, because women have a different relationship to children than men do. Like people always assume that women have a more motherly affection for children, but that's not necessarily true, because all women don't like kids. and even all mothers, even though they love their kids, like kids can be exasperating and frustrating. I know I frustrate my mom. She frustrates me too, but I know I frustrate my mom. So like it's important to get that kind of perspective. So what did you learn about how your mom looked at being a parent while you were making the film, that you were like, perhaps you were saying, "Mom, I'm sorry"?
Yeah, sometimes that happens, because sometimes she was, I don't know, because it's very tough. It's very, I don't know, some kind of magic when you're like creating something from nothing, from the idea, and you should make a film, and you should, I don't know, get all the exact right persons, like production designer, some other some executive producers, and all that. And Yulia, she was the person who can, I don't know, see the whole picture. That's why her, I don't know, previous works as a production designer, as the architect also, she can see the whole picture, and she know what's necessary and what we can, I don't know, sacrifice for the time of money. So, and also she's more experienced person in the storytelling, because she worked on a drama more than me. Yeah, and also because my brother, he also was a DP on that film, and was one of the producer. And it's sometimes she managed that I don't know, fights between us, between other crew members. I think that she was the mom for the whole crew. I think that was but sometimes it was some strong mom which can I don't know, which can punish you. And sometimes which can give you candy or something.
Yeah, she'll be like, at the next family dinner, I will bring this up again. But now talking about the film, because like we're mentioning, like this is a film about parents and children. So this film, it's not magical realism, but it's a adventure. It's a story about these siblings going on an adventure to China. They think that China is this place where everything is possible. You can literally get anything. And one of the things they want to get, and what they think is possible, is finding this cure for their dad. And they think that if they find this cure, which is Viagra, so we got to talk about that. But they think that if they don't know what it is, but they just know it's something that's supposed to make men be better men. And and they believe that if they get this magical pill and this medicine to make their dad seem more like a man in their mom's eyes, that's going to keep the family whole, that's going to keep them together. And it's such a, I think the way you have it is like you keep that childlike innocence about it, because it's just these kids, they have no idea what these adults are talking about. They're just seeing life from a very simplified perspective. But for us as adults watching this story, we can see that this is a story about how society and families feed children the ideas of what makes of what makes a man, and like saying, like a mom saying you're not a good provider, and the kids are in their head thinking, but we're pretty fine. The kids, they're happy with what they have, but the mother, she frustrated. She's like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And then for the dad, he's like, I'm trying my best, but my best isn't good enough. So I want to talk about I want first to talk about those three aspects of the film, like talking about the childlike innocence of the character of the children, but then the grown up nuance and perspectives that underlie everything else. Because I think like it kind of reminds us that children only really do see the world the way they want to, whereas as adults, like we have to see, like you mentioned, like seeing the bigger picture, being able to see like consequences for actions and all of that.
Yeah, right. Because basically that's the plot of the story is the kids want to start to, when they see that parents act like kids, so kids want to become like adults for them and try to fix the parents' marriage. So they want to buy that, find that magic pill to fix, which can save the marriage or save and that's the main thing. But under that, it's also you mentioned about gender stereotypes, which can also which our parents and society gave us during the growing up, and that's what I try to develop and talk about with the audience, because it's that's why it calls stereotypes, because it's what the big part of the society follow, but it's not that like the law. It's you should at first you should listen your inner voice to understand what's good for you, and then or maybe you could just you can listen what people say, but you should make decision following your inner voice. So that's basically what I want to talk, what we want to develop, what we want to talk about with audience. And about innocent, yeah, sure. I think that's the main thing which we want to also to talk about. You should be fair and how to say to be clear with the kids, with anyone, but especially when you're when you have a kids, when we're growing, you should because kids they can feel when you're cheating and when you're lying. Mm-hmm. They are so like the detector. And when I worked with the kids who played in that, when I gave them a script, and I started to I try to be with them fair also when they ask something, but most of them know what's that some boner or other stuff, because they're 11 years old. They start explore that sexuality and things, but they know some exact what that happens, but they know, as you mentioned about that Viagra can help the male become stronger or something. So that's the basic thing, and especially not with the kids only, in the relationship, when you're family or with a couple, you should be fair. You should tell exact what you think, or you should share your pain or the thing. So that's what we want to talk about. That's what I try to reflect in the film, because when you hide something, when you are not talking, so that's can I don't know, break the marriage.
Yeah, no, like communication is important, not only between the parents, but between the parents to the kids, because like as you said, like children are very intuitive, like they're very smart, while as I said, they see things from a very simplified way. That simplification lets them know something is wrong. They don't know exactly what's wrong, but they can pick up when something is wrong in a marriage, or with the relationships around them. And they're just like thinking this needs to be fixed. They don't need to know that dad broke a promise to mom. And even if they do, they don't have to understand all the nuances about, about marital commitment and all of that. They just know that this is a problem that needs to be fixed. While for adults, like we got to go through all of these steps, to fixing the problems. And kids are like, it's easy, just talk, But and so like the kids are very intuitive. Like I've worked I've been around kids most of my life. I've worked with kids, and kids scare me with how intelligent they are, and also how also they're very they're terrifying. I love kids, but they're terrifying because they see things the way we don't see things, and like they can say things in the most unassuming way, but it's like, I'm like, that sounds like a threat. I've had kids tell me they would eat me because I look like chocolate, but that's a different story. But they're very smart, and like that comes across in the film because like Fasania and Jabai, like they're like, we have to get to China, and they figure out a way to get to China. You know, like they hitchhike. They don't see the dangers of hitchhiking, but they're like, this is going to take me from point A to Z, and I'm going to go and take that path to fixing this situation. So like they're very intuitive that way. But another thing that you mentioned that I really want to talk about is how is about the sexualization of kids. Like, yes, they understand sex from a very rudimentary position. But another thing that I think your film really does teach is how adults introduce children to sexuality and sex from a very early age. You know, like they take away that childlike innocence with regards to like that dynamic between men and women. You know, like people are like adults make very suggestive comments to kids, and they're just like, oh, talking about the size of Jabai's like penis, you know, or the other kids. I'm like, you don't need to be discussing these things with kids, but this is something that adults say in a very throwaway manner. And I'm just like, that can cause problems for him, like from beginning now, like he's becoming very more self-conscious about his body in a way that he didn't. So talk about that aspect, I think, of the film, because I think that's something that is really discussed in films a lot. Because like in the 80s and 90s, there were a lot of films that showed children, not even like 17, 18 year, but like preteens, like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds talking about sex and engaging in what we would call sexual acts, and it was treated as very matter of fact. And I'm just like, that now our society, that we're boomers. Am I a boomer? But that generation has so many issues now with sexuality, and you see how it's affected us like these years later. So talk about how your film, I think, very in a very nuanced way, talks about how adults sexualize children and treat and introduce children to sex and sexuality at a time they don't need to know.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think also it's a part of the to explore your sexuality is a part of the life, and to talk about it even with the kids, but you should choose the right words or right way to talk about, but you don't need to hide something, or I don't know, transform it to the like talk about unicorns and all that stuff, like it's magic. No, it's like it's some kind of magic, but it's more like you should be straight, you should be with them, and also it's maybe that's something which also was interesting for me during my childhood, because I remember with the same age or maybe younger with my friends, we a friend of mine, my neighbor, he had that some kind of a book with about sex, which mom gave him. She gives him, and we went to him with all my friends and just looked through that, and then we ran around the apartments just to, I don't know, so we have a lot of energy. And we played the cards with naked girls, and we explored that thing a lot during our childhood. I think that's maybe that stuck in my mind. And later on, during the teenage times, I also thought about it. But I think that's very important not to hide it. You need to, if especially if your child asks about it, you should, take your time and just discuss something that. And that's what I don't like, when the people have that, I don't know, they ashamed to talk about it, especially with the kids. That happens a lot. I have a lot of my friends who said that I never want to talk about pregnancy or something with my girl, some friends, and that can bring you to some consequences, like with the problems when they get pregnant accidentally or something. So that's why you need to talk, because if you don't, that someone on the street can talk about them, and they can give them some not necessary information about that.
Yeah, they'll learn about it from the wrong people and in the wrong way, right? Like the parents should obviously be talking about and I think the other thing is not being ashamed of your body. Like a parent's job is supposed to make children feel comfortable in their body, let them be able to talk about their body and the changes that they're going through. But if parents don't talk about it, like parents will they can engage in like physical affection and all of this in front of their kids. But then when it comes time to actually talking about it with their kids, they don't do it, and then I'm not sure how it is in Kazakhstan and like in Russia and stuff, but like even now I'm originally from Barbados. So I learned, my mom talked about this stuff with me and my twin sister and with our older brother. He's 10 years older. So I didn't really have to worry about that part. But in secondary school and in primary school, we were talked about this kind of stuff. We learned about sexual reproduction, about the sexual body and everything. Could possibly because I also went to an all-girls school, so it was a more comfortable setting. But now, like, so many people don't want their kids to learn about sex and sexuality in school, but they also don't want to talk to their kids. And it's just like you're leaving kids like where they're supposed to go, because our bodies and our sexuality, all this is an intrinsic part of who we are. How can you not teach them about their own bodies, and then you have, as you said, you have kids who grow up and they don't know how to have safe sex, they don't understand like how the human body works and how periods work and all of that kind of stuff. And then you have boys who also don't know anything about the female anatomy, and like, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah, that's and also about this, said you should accept yourself, you should accept your body. How you could not like your body, love your body, because it's you. There is
Exactly.
no one else, because it's. And about this, even the words like you mentioned about they cannot say word sex, because it was some during the audition for the film, some kids could not. They changed the line with the Uncle Vita. Mom had sex with Uncle Vita. They changed it to some other words. And I said you should say that because it's what the line is in your line in the film. And he laughed, but he keep switch it to another world. So that's why he's also affected with that stereotypes that you cannot say that. But it's, I don't know, it's natural. It's science word.
It's a scientific word. But we talked now about the sex and the whole and identity and sex. But I want to also talk about something that is tied into that, but from the female characters like Sanya and her mom. I noticed her mom is very worried about Sanya being like a girl. She doesn't want her to be like what we would call a tomboy. She wants her to be more girly. She doesn't want her to be rough and tumble. And she also doesn't want her to be exposed to the sun. Like she mentions about her skin tone. And the mom, she uses all of these creams on her face because she wants to protect her skin. And like the actress that you cast is very, first, kudos to you and your casting director, because the two actresses that you got to play the mom and the daughter look so much alike. I was wondering if they really are related, because like they're like mini me. There's like a mini and a mini me. Like they were so well cast. But the mom, she's very pale and slim and slender and tall, and she has like the blonde hair, and she's very fierce. So like for the mom, she wears all of these things, like wants to get home at night to protect her skin. But then during the day, she also wears like this, basically like a pink baklava, so she doesn't get dark, and like that kind of speaks to, I think, colorism and the whole identity, the whole idea of feminine beauty. To be a really beautiful woman, a woman must be tall and slim and fair. She can't be burned. She can't have the rudiness that the boys have. She can't look like a boy. So talk about that, because I think it's interesting for you as a male director in particular to address this issue of femininity and how women perceive themselves as feminine and how they put that onto their daughters, but also then how men perceive feminine beauty, is like, which is the opposite of the men. Like the boys and the men can be tanned and dark, whereas the women got to be like the complete opposite.
About the casting, no, they are not relatives. Yeah, but they looks like it's mother or sisters. Yeah, but it's our casting director, Layla Sizdikova. She made a good job during that, because it's very difficult when you have the kids and the parents in the film, when and they should have some similarities. And about that thing I want to mention for the first, but yeah, they because she have the stereotype. The mom, she had that stereotypes about how the girls should talk, how they should wear, clothes. But on another side, she, as you mentioned, she's like a tomboy, the Sanya, and also mom acts like a most strongest person in the whole film, like because she have that someone journalist told me that she wrote in the article that the only person who has balls in that film is yeah, and about the stereotype, I think that's why how my mom Julia, she and my co-writer, she helped me with that, how to develop that character, how to reflect that stereotypes which affects from which I don't know, follow from mother to the kids and go later to another generation, next generation. Yeah, I think that's a basic thing to show that in how in honest, because it's we are some not difficult, we are some complicated person, and on one hand we can be the strong and we can show that we can be like a feminist, but on another side we can reflect that and say it about the stereotypes we can to our kids, like for the sign so don't talk like that, because girls doesn't talk like that. So I think that's the basic thing to show, and the same thing about that masks and all the thing, because they moved to the countryside from the city, and she kept some like rituals. She keep doing that thing. She want to keep her beauty as she see it. So yeah,
and I thought it was really interesting because I like for women, whether you're dark skinned like me or like you're like white or of different ethnicities and races, like colorism is a very big part of how we are told to view ourselves. Like, the darker you are, the more unattractive you are. So, but then like there always comes a point where we have to, as we were saying from the beginning, be comfortable in who you are, and a part of that has to be with comfortable in your own skin, with the color of your skin, and being like confident in saying like there's nothing wrong with getting a tan, just wear sunblock. But there's nothing like there's nothing wrong with the mom looking after her skin, but then it's also like she could be not unconsciously making her daughter self-conscious about the way she looks, and like, well, she wants to have just this childhood playing with her brother and her brother's friends, because she doesn't have there's no other female children running around, it's all boys. She wants to play with them. She doesn't want to be concerned about how she looks, she just wants to have fun. But the mom is just like, don't mess up your skin and all that. So like, it's again talking about unconscious bias and how again parents can subconsciously have their children become uncomfortable in their own bodies and in their own skin. And one of the things that I thought was really that I've been talking again about masculinity and about femininity and also relationships and family dynamics is the house that dad is attempting to build. Like something that I love, some of the scenes that kind of made me giggle is like every time something would start to go wrong, a block would fall from the wall, I kind of read it as like the family is beginning to slowly fall apart and crumble because they're not fixing what's supposed to happen. The foundation may be there. They had a good solid foundation as a family at first. They were happy, but they moved to the countryside and like everything is starting to crumble. So I love that you put in that part of, especially for the production design in it, because this is a physical representation of their family's dynamics at the moment, like a house starting to fall apart. Not built very well at all. Like those bricks were like, that's not working.
Right. Yeah. That's the also we tried to find some I don't know, some symbol of the family, some symbol of the marriage, which fallen apart, and that's we found that house because that's why they moved to the countryside, because they want to their kids to grow up in some more organic atmosphere, because more like with the good food, with some fresh air, because especially in my home city in Almaty there is a huge problem with the air. The mountain our city surrounded by mountain because of that car pollution and all that factories. It's a huge problem with the air, and that's why they moved to the countryside, more closer to the Chinese border. And so that house is what they started to be, because it was some. I know that's a lot of some programs, some government programs with which can give you some space, some earth where you can build something, and they start to build from that. I don't know how to say. It's some from everything, but they have around.
Oh, you mean from just like the ground? Like, yeah, the bricks were like made from like grass and like the mud, which is like natural. Which is like old houses and everything was built first, But the dad clearly does not have any kind of architectural training. He doesn't know how to build a house. And it's like, I know how to kind of like, I have the kind of foundations because like we have built our house back home and stuff. And it was like, you do not know how to make bricks. You do not know how to lay foundation. But it's like, you want to, like, the intention is good, but the execution is terrible.
Sure, that's what happens during the marriage when you get married, because you don't know how to. I don't know. Sometimes parents give you some kind of a not rules, I think, but there's no one who can give you the map or the plan, that's a blueprint how to build your marriage. So you develop that during the time. So I think that's the quite not bad to reflect that. And good, as you mentioned, it's thanks for our production designer who worked on that, who created that part, who capture that.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question. So one of the things I also want to ask you now is because this film is so very family centered, like it talks particularly about this family, but one of the aspects of the film that I think that I found really entertaining is the community. Like these people are all very they're all very weird, but in an entertaining way, like you don't know what any of these characters are gonna say, what they're gonna do. And like there's these two guys riding up and down the highway. I'm like going where? I have no idea. But one of the scenes that was kind of funny to me was when like there's finally this fight between the dad and the mom and Uncle Vitya, who is like this kind of he's kind of like a usurper, he comes in and the mom is like, she's like, he can give me what I want. And there's this fight, but then like the people pull up chairs and they're like, oh, we're going to finally get an entertaining show. So, but it's kind of funny to me that no one tries to stop the fight, for them, this is entertaining. But I think to me, I saw it as like, this family has to solve their issues themselves. No one can really step in. No one can really help them. No one can really step in and solve this problem for them. And I think that's kind of the way it is for families, because the family can only be fixed if the family wants to be fixed, like if they don't want to work together as a family, which I'm thinking about it, is the whole point of the very last scene where they're on the tri-bike getting the bottles and everything together. Like they can't work as a family if they don't put the actions behind it, if they don't have the intent to want to fix it, if they don't try to communicate and talk to each other. So talk about the community members and how they interact with this family, because the community is like hilarious.
You mean in the film? In the
film, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about that. Only if you have intention, if you're both sides in family have intention to communicate, to find a solution of the crisis. And I have a question also for you. Do you think did they find this? Did they go through that crisis? Did you find the solution at the end of the film? Or?
I think they did. I think they're beginning to find their way to resolving their issues. Like they're at the first step. They're making that effort. Like the mom, like before, she wanted nothing to do with the dad collecting the bottles. Like like this is something that he's doing to like provide money for them. But at the end, she's like, we'll do it together. Before she would stand and watch him struggle, and struggle to help do these things. But I think the reason she didn't want to help him is because it seemed like he didn't want to help himself. Like he didn't want to try, like, for instance, there's a couple scenes where he's trying to build a house and he has these two guys working on the bricks.
Yeah.
And you can see that they know the quality of the bricks is terrible, but he's doing yoga. And in my head, I'm thinking, why are you here doing yoga? Why are you not actively building a house, right? So it kind of shows that he's kind of living in his own fantasy world where he thinks everything's just magically going to work out. And I think that frustrated her. She was like, you're not putting in the effort. She's like, you have the intention, but you're not putting in the effort. So by the end, she realizes that she also has to help him because the family can't work with only one parent putting in effort. She has to help him as well. So I think they're on that step to resolving their issues.
That's cool. So that seems that the film at the end gave you hope. That's interesting. Yeah, about the other character, about the society. It's I also try to reflect our society because it's very if another side of this. Some different and funny characters around me. Maybe that's I'm also talking about. I'm trying to reflect society and the people who surrounded me. That's how the story creates, and that's the great idea because which you mentioned. That's only the society can maybe show you some problem or can mention you some issues with your partner, with you own. But only you or in charge of what's happening in with your family, with your kids and all the things. So I think that's the good thing because the society should help you if you only ask to help them.
Yeah.
So if no one asks, so no one screamed that "help me, please." They just start to fight in that scene. But you have the police, which came and yeah. So
it's really useful.
Right.
In society, the police generally, I'm like, what is the point of the police? They're like, to protect and serve. I'm like, to protect and serve who exactly? So yeah. I'm like, that was a true representation of the police.
Yeah.
So I think Jen hasn't stopped me yet, so I can go on. One other thing I did want to talk about the character of there's this little girl. Well, no, she's not little. She's a teenager, and she comes in, and I thought she was actually a very brilliant insert into the film because it again like talking about male and female perspectives and how men before we were talking about how men perceive themselves and how women perceive each other. But I think she's a good character of how men do perceive other men, but then showing that women can exceed expectations that men have of them, because she comes in, she's kind of like a ninja, and she comes in and she fights this guy, and Jabai automatically assumes that this has to be a guy because he believes that only guys can fight like this. And then it's revealed, no, it's actually a girl. And he's like, wait. And he has kind of this, I think it's a very small moment, but I think he's realizing, you know what? I shouldn't really basically be judging a book by its cover. It's never safe to assume to know anyone basically just on what you assume their perspective is. So I talk about her because she was unexpected. And she was just like this little, she came in and she left. But I think she added this moment for Jabai where he realizes, girls can be badass too,
Yeah. That's why. That's a great question. I think that character is the main. I don't know, one of the main. Experience for the Jabai during that road trip. It's that's as you mentioned that you don't need to judge by the first impression. It's or by the look. If that girl can be a badass, that girl can fight better than you. Maybe that's why he falls in love with her, because she's a strong person, which he wants to be, and maybe together they can be more stronger. But I think it's also a good example of how that shows Jabai that it's not what you're thinking. You don't need to judge about the facade of the person, because how the father, he thought that father is the strongest person, but when he saw that he's crying, he think that everything is falling apart. But at the end of the story, he understood that that's not the basic thing. That's not what makes you the male. Are you crying or not? So that's also not what girls what make you female or girl. It's not that you're fighting or are you acting like a girl or not. And maybe that's when he start to how to say accept his sister Sania, that he can act like a boy, and that's okay. I mean, he can be the tomboy.
Yeah, because he was kind of like, he would make fun of Sanya, like the way like his friends did, because again, she's a tomboy, and they have this idea that girls are supposed to be soft and feminine to them. Anyway, they think that femininity means being soft and dressing in like skirts and all of this, where like, again, they're young, but also it's like grown men have this misconception of what femininity is. Like they have this idea of femininity being a very specific thing, whereas like the same thing, like gender and gender identity is a spectrum. Femininity itself is a spectrum, you know, like you can be tough and still embrace your femininity, you know, like, so
yeah,
it's like,
that's what that character Hoin reflects, because at the beginning she fights like a boy and he dressed like a boy, and then she changed dress, and she more like a girl with that thing with the flowers on the hat. Yeah, that's what we also try to show. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine, because no, it's true, because it's not only that, but then also I think you mentioned the dad crying, and it's all tied in. Like I just love how all of these things are all interconnected in your film, in the script. Like the dad crying, like again, they see crying as a sign of weakness, but crying is not a sign of weakness. Like for me, when I'm like super truly angry, I cry, because if I can't punch something, I'm gonna cry. So like people always have, and like crying is okay, because I think crying is about showing vulnerability. And again, this whole, and I even put it in my notes, like the thing is, men have this idea of what they think masculinity is, because it's supposed to appeal to women. This is what women want in men, but I think it's more about what men think other men should be like. You know, it's like women want a man who can cry, because we like to know that he can be vulnerable, and crying is an expression of his feelings, you know. And like, if you're sad, cry. Like you're like, that's what your body is telling you to do. If you're hurt, cry. That's what your body is telling you to do. But they think they're saying, oh, this is what women want in men. Like, no, this is like what you think this is what you think that women want, and this is what you as a man believe how other men and boys should behave, you know. And it's like, no, and that causes so many issues. That's where you have toxic masculinity, and it can start from very young, which is what you're showing. It starts from very young, and then we see the grown-up version in the men around them, you know. And the thing is, you kind of juxtapose that with the physical idea of masculinity, you know. Like the dad is very slim, he looks very frail and fragile, but he has the strongest punch. You know, and like he kind of like defies people's expectations of what strength is, and he has that emotional resolve. So I think I like also how you explore that idea of masculinity and strength, you know. Like he's strong, he has a strong punch, but he also has a very weak body, like his poor back, his poor knees. But I think we have to wrap up now. So thank you. So I want to ask you for you, like when at the end of, I always love to ask filmmakers at the end of their projects what they learned about themselves and about the making of film. So what did you learn about yourself after making this film, and like how it changed your idea of like gender and femininity and masculinity, or even maybe perhaps your relationship with your mom and your brother, having worked on a film like this with this particular concept?
I think I start to more like accept myself, some weaknesses of mine, because that's the part of which I can develop maybe more to be more strong person, but that's a part of me. But from side of the relationship with the family, it's because we make it together. I think the main thing sometimes it's really tough to work with them and with me for sure, but it's that's what the family is. Because no one can help you. No one can, I don't know, understand you more than your family members, your parents, your siblings, and that's we can create something together. I don't know. We can create something bigger together. Not if we will work separately. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, family is like the best, and it can also be the worst. But I think it's like really special that you got to that you got to make a film about family with your family. Thank you so much for joining me today, Eldar. This was a great conversation, and congratulations on the film and showing it at the festival.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's it. I saw Jen singling to me in the background. So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Oops.
Have a good day. Thank you.
So everyone, thank you. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Carolyn Talks. Today, I was joined by writer and director Eldar Shibanov to talk about his film Mountain Onion, and which is kooky, strange, and daring, and I think an extremely relatable and very smart film about gender misconceptions, identity, family. Like, what do you want your family to be? How can you make a family work? And, learning about yourself and finding yourself in the strangest situations and making it making it through strange situations. Because life is funny and weird and unpredictable. And I think this film is like that. It's funny and weird and unpredictable. And I appreciate Eldar joining me today. And I appreciate him taking the time to speak to me and sharing his perspective on the film and just sharing a bit about his culture through this film. And I wish him the best success. What am I saying? And I wish him the most success and like congratulations on a successful showing at the festival. And I wish him future festivals to show his films at. And you can. So, like, congratulations to him again. And you can find this episode in video format on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Carolyn_Hines. That's HIND as in David S. And you'll find other interviews for the New York Asian Film Festival, as well as past TIFF interviews, as well as a couple I did for the Toronto Japanese International Film Festival there. And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok using the handle @CarrieCNH. So that's @CarrieCNH12. Find links to all of my written work, that's interviews, film analysis, film reviews, op-eds, essays, what have you, on my R3 page. That's authoroy.com/Carolyn Hines. And you can also find links to my work in my pinned tweets on my Twitter page. I'm not calling it X. I'm calling it Twitter, no matter what that man says. So I think that's it. So until the next episode of Carolyn Talks, everyone stay safe. Bye.